Hey, my name is Lizzie Smiley, and I absolutely love helping people connect with their calling and all the tools they need to kick roadblocks and excuses right out the door so they can cultivate the life they dream about. If you want to launch, grow, pivot, or scale your Etsy shop, or you've always wanted to develop the mindset and skills to run your own business, then I'm your girl. I've had that entrepreneurial spirit going strong since my very first lemonade stand, and now I'm a work-at-home mama with multiple online companies and a full-time Etsy shop, all while being present with my kids for the everyday chaos and most important milestones. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things business, mindset, Etsy, creativity, dazzling our customers, and so much more. There's plenty of room at this table for you, so scooch on in and let's go. I'm holding nothing back. Welcome to How to Sell Your Stuff on Etsy. I'm so glad you're here. Hey guys, welcome back to the show this week. I am speaking to you from the lovely Northwoods of Wisconsin, where we are for the next several months. And I am basking in the 65-degree high today because back in Texas, it is over 100 and I am so grateful. So I hope that you are soaking up summer. I think we've got like about a month left before school resumes. And so my daughter is in VBS, Vacation Bible School, this week, and we are still just laying low. I can't believe it's halfway over, and I'm already kind of grieving it, but I'm glad. I'm just like, okay, don't get ahead of yourself. We've still got a month. Things are going so well. It's always a bit of a slower season, as we know, as Etsy sellers. But for me, it's a time of idea generation, which gets me really excited. And little pro tip here. So I'm a kind of person, I'm kind of learning, I think this might be like some of the ADHD, but I can kind of go through like highs and lows in terms of my energy and inspiration. So I don't know if you ever get kind of deflated or like, even if things are going well, like sometimes you have a bit of a lull or you feel uninspired. That happens to me periodically. And over the years, I've gotten much better about, it used to throw me into a full blown depression, and I would need some massive breakthrough to pull me out of it. And as I've gotten older and wiser, I've kind of learned how to not let myself go too far down the discouragement path, and B, just learned tools that kind of snap me out of it. And so it's not, everyone's kind of got to find their own way, right? But I find that if I have kind of my list of what inspires me, of what I can go back into that inspires me, that can be like a game changer rather than kind of waiting for God or fate or whatever to step in and pull me out. And we're all going to have different things, right? So for me, I love people like Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone. If you're not familiar with him, he wrote that book 10X. He's very intense, but they really fire me up. And I remember several years ago, the book Educated, what is her name? Tara something. There were just things that I knew that I could go review or go back into, and it would pull me out of a slump. And so you've got to figure out what that is for you. If you're super high energy like me, and you are just a born and bred entrepreneur, and you always are excited about ideas, then these high energy people, you know what? I need to add some women to that list. There've got to be some women out there that do that. You guys need to DM me with who I want to know who are the people or what are the things you do to fire yourself up. But if you're feeling the summer slump, I just want you to know that you can pull yourself out. And right now I am binging. So Grant Cardone was on Undercover Billionaire. That's another thing, those kinds of shows. And oh my gosh, Shark Tank. I can't sleep for days after I watch Shark Tank. I get so excited. So this is the Etsy crew, so I'm sure many of you are much more lower key than this, but just to give you a little peek into my world, I'm watching right now on YouTube, on Grant's 10X YouTube channel. I will link this for you like I always do, but I'm watching his commentary of the Undercover Billionaire series that he did. He recorded it back in literally in the lockdown of 2020. I almost said 2000, of 2020. And so he was selected as this billionaire to go totally undercover. Discovery Network gives him $100 cash, an old beat up truck, and a cell phone. Put him in the middle of nowhere, put him in a small town that he's never been to. He doesn't know what it is before he gets there. And he has 90 days to build a million dollar business. And the whole thing is to show what anyone can do. They don't have to have the name, the money, the contacts, what they could go do just with the right hustle. And so I'm watching his commentary where he's tearing Discovery to shreds because of the way that they edited this. but it's so insightful. I can't tell you how fired up I am right now hearing the way that he goes about it. And I think like the biggest mistake that I make, I'm so like, as usual, going off script. I'm going to get into the Etsy stuff in a second, but I have to say this. I was so reminded by him that it really comes down to making contacts and meeting people. That's why our community is so important, right? In our Etsy Facebook group, being able to bounce things off of each other. Because I am such a lone wolf, you guys. I love to go into just be alone in my little thing on the laptop. He literally, one of his lines is, I'm never going to build $1 million business hiding behind my laptop. And I was like, oh, straight to the heart. Like, wow. And not that we can't, obviously I am home with children, but the point is I can be a recluse and I need to be sharing ideas more with people, talking more with people, even online in our Etsy community. And I'm hoping that maybe some of you, this will spark some excitement for you. So that's what I am up to. Come get fired up with me. I want all the DMs and emails about what fires you up and what you're listening to, or if you're feeling in a slump and what you're looking for. I'd love to point you in the right direction of what might energize you. That being said, so today we're going to jump into Etsy's big announcement from last week. They totally reworked their like house rules about what can be sold on Etsy. It's not super different, but it's much clearer. And I want to give that to you in the Lizzie Smiley snapshot style, rather than you having to go read through it. Of course, critical things will be linked in the show notes for you. I think it's very exciting that they've clarified their stance both on mockups and the use of them, and also on AI art. So we're going to talk through all of that. Part of the beginning of this, what I'm going to do is just give you the bottom line. I'm going to kind of tell you, like, talk through what the specifications are for the 4 groups of allowed things that they've created. So that might be a little on the drier side, but stick with me and we're going to get into the what's permissible for AI and also for mockups. And that's going to be really fun. And they did make one. They're saying they didn't make any changes to their house rules. I believe there's one very notable change, and I will talk through that as well. So stick with me. Real quick, I am chewing on an idea for you guys, but I never like to do anything new without actually running it by you first. So last year I had launched we had the micro niche magic workshop, which is still available and is amazing. It's literally my how do I find hidden opportunities on Etsy mini course, and you can still grab that. I'll also include a coupon code for it in the show notes if you want to grab that and learn. But at the same time, I had launched where I was releasing access to my personal list of how I was gathering data from Sales Samurai, so that you didn't have to have a membership to Sales Samurai, but B, you didn't have to go do the research because I just had it all there. And the format that I did that in, it was fine, but it wasn't awesome. And I have got such better ideas now about how to get you what you really want, and not just using Sales Samurai, because I feel I still use them every day. And there are parts of it that are extremely helpful, but I think it's very limited and I have a better system now. So all of that to say, I want to get your feedback. I've heard over and over and over and over again from you guys that a lot of people come to me and like, I don't know what to sell. Whether that's like, I don't even know what physical product niche to get into, or I sell print on demand and digital, and I don't know what niches and things are trending as like how to figure that out from week to week. I'm wondering if any of you would be interested in a subscription service where I'll send you an email every single week, and it will have a minimum of 5 hot trends, like things where there is demand that it's like hidden, no one knows about it yet. It's demand from the buyers is skyrocketing, but people aren't on it yet. Like there's only 1 or 2 competitors. I'm sure it'll be more than 1 or 2 often, but it will be a hot opportunity. And not only will I just give you that list, but for each one, you will get a video showing how I figured that out so that you can assess that data for yourself and decide what's right for you. I'm going to put a little survey. It's going to be so simple. Like click the survey button, answer 2 to 3 questions. Let me know if you want me to keep you posted on the status of this if I develop it out. But I want to find out what would really be helpful, because I feel like there's 2 separate things here. I feel like physical product people might just want to come in occasionally and maybe buy a list. Like here's this month's list of 20 things. Whereas someone in print on demand and digital might prefer the ongoing list. Like they want the weekly list because it saves them a ton of time in research and like not having to even learn all of that, so that they can just go create the designs. So I'm talking too much. This is classic Lizzie. If any of that sounds interesting, if you'd like to save a ton of time and get an expert's eyes, I look at hundreds of thousands of Etsy listings a month. if you want to save the time on having to do that research and figuring out what's hot and trending, and you'd be willing to pay for a very reasonable subscription service to get that emailed to you every week, fill out that survey. Let me know what you think. Or if you think that's the worst idea ever, I also want you to click on the survey and tell me. And that's totally fine. You don't have to provide your email. You can just anonymously be like, no, and any other suggestions will be open there as well. The other thing that has just recently come to me, because I've been getting an influx of these emails and DMs, is I might need to be offering something like an ultra beginner group coaching. And I think sometimes people who are super new or super beginner, or maybe don't feel very tech savvy, they really want to make this thing work. But like a common question, believe it or not, that I'll get that people are very embarrassed to ask is, how do I export and save a file out of Canva? For some of us, that's just like old hat, right? You would never spend time with a coach asking that question. And other people, that's their biggest barrier, is like that technology piece. So there'll be a separate little survey. Let me know if you'd be interested in just an ultra beginner coaching group where like everyone is so new, so beginner that there's just no dumb question. And we're just going to get into the real basics. Like, how do I create an image and like download it without a white background? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do I do this basic tech thing, maybe within Etsy or on Canva or something else? I want to make that available because I don't want anyone to be embarrassed. And I don't want you, like, let me just tell you right now, are you going to have to learn tech? Yes, I can make it so easy for you and have videos where you could go back and review, but I just don't want it to stop you. I can't tell you how many people it stops, especially in like the 50 plus age bracket. And just, there's just room at the table for you. Like, I am begging you to scoot up to the table. So let me know with your email and your information if you'd like more on that. I'm done. You guys have been super patient for 10 minutes while I talked about all kinds of stuff. Let's dive into Etsy's big announcement, what you need to know. So basically, CEO Josh Silverman of Etsy, there's an announcement video. It is linked in the show notes. It was put on YouTube. And they were letting us know that they just wanted to clarify their house rules of what's okay to sell on Etsy. So they were releasing it both within our like seller guide on Etsy and also like kind of going over the basics on this YouTube video. And of course, the second they do this, I want to go into more of the detail because this is where we always get into these big debates, right? Of, okay, but what is the fine print and all of that? And so all of that's going to be linked as well if you really want to dig in and see. But I think it's gotten much clearer. I like these a lot better and I was very happy. So they're calling this their creativity standards, which is their house rules. And they have broken it into 4 distinct categories. I'm going to give you like the bird's eye view right now, and then we're going to go into the detail so that especially if you don't have time or don't want to, you don't have to go read all of that fine little nitty gritty if you don't want to. So 4 categories. Number 1, made by a seller, which covers physical items, crafted, altered, or assembled by the seller by hand or using tools that they own. So for example, a 3D printer or a Cricut machine. The next one, number 2, designed by a seller. So made by, designed by. Designed by a seller are original designs by a seller or a seller prompted AI art, wow, offered as a digital download or printed by a third party. This is covering a lot of our digital products and a lot of our print on demand products. So made by a seller, designed by a seller. Number 3 is sourced by a seller. This is where it's getting interesting. Items that enable buyer creativity, such as craft supplies, party decorations, and items buyers can personalize and print on demand. But I think that gets interesting because we're going to talk a little bit about something they didn't allow before, which was gift baskets, which is a total game changer. So this whole sourced by concept is a really exciting one for us. Number 4 is hand-picked by a seller, which also can fall into this, but that's going to cover your vintage items from nature, and certain collections of items selected and curated by a seller. So again, handpicked, like kind of covering this gift basket thing, which they're going to get very specific on, and I'm thrilled they finally have made this clear. So those are your 4, and what's going to happen is you're going to see the listing setup in your dashboard change to where we have to specify some of this the way, like when you set up your listing. And my guess is they're going to prompt you if it's not clear. You may have to edit some listings. We'll see how they handle that. But one of these 4 categories is going to be assigned to every single listing, and it's going to be shown on the buyer side, on the shopping side, so that they can clearly understand the seller's role in creating the product. It's going to clear up a lot. I'm hoping that this being like a unifying thing is going to make it like super, super clear. Like okay, yes, this is a vintage item, or this is a print on demand item. Like maybe take a little bit of heat off of us, the understanding that there is a third party company printing the t-shirt, creating the final product and shipping it to you. I know that as sellers, it's best if we take as much responsibility of that on ourselves. Like we are the one they're doing business with, but I'm just hoping the clarification just eases stuff a little bit between buyer and seller. So this is not new, but when you're working with a production partner, like a printer or a manufacturer or a tradesperson, like even like a person, print on demand company, you are required to disclose this on the applicable listings. I feel like this piece though was a little more obscure in how it was set up before in listings, and it's going to be much easier and clearer to specify this. I think it's great that it's going to kind of force sellers to do this. So something that bothered me for a long time was, yes, it was in the seller or in the Etsy house rules that you had to disclose this, but it kind of wasn't enforced. It was sort of something that you didn't have to do to make sure your listing got out there. So you could put yourself forward like you're making these items yourself. And it kind of maybe gave you an advantage because of where it was showing it was being shipped from. But now everyone's going to be required to do it just to set up the listing. And I think that's a good thing. And the other thing that Etsy wants really, really, really clear for the purchaser is where it's shipping from. So you'll be able to set that up. But like companies like Printify are going to make that really clear, showing that it's coming from like like if you're in the US, it's coming from a US printer. Or if you're in Europe, it's gonna show the buyer that it's not coming all the way from Europe. We're going to be able to make this piece much more clear for the buyer, and I think that's so good. I think that's going to mean more sales, and it's going to even the playing field for folks who haven't been upfront about the fact that they're using a production partner. All right, friend, this one is for my people who want to build and scale an Etsy shop for physical products. You may not know this about me because I've run and talked about all different types of shops since launching the podcast, but I actually got my start on Etsy in physical products, and to this day, I consider that my expertise. My very first Etsy business was a handmade shop for wood signs that my husband and I built, painted, boxed, and shipped. And we ran that puppy for 6 amazing years and made hundreds of thousands of dollars with that shop. I will never forget it. I'm so grateful. I know what it's like, and I know how to build a successful handmade business. It can be really hard in the beginning, especially because the physical part of the product creation takes up a lot of time and energy. And then you have to pair that with like having to develop the actual skills of getting people to buy them. It's a whole different mammoth of a ball game. So if that is you're planning a physical product shop, or you've got one that's not getting the results that you want, you need my flagship Etsy course. It's called Listings That Sell 2.0. And I will literally teach you everything I know, every secret up my sleeve, and the entire strategy that I used. And now hundreds of other students have used as well to get sales on Etsy. We're going to talk about how Etsy works and how to leverage the algorithm, how to find pockets of demand so that you don't list your products and just get crickets. I'm going to teach you everything about SEO, or search engine optimization, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm going to show you how to use the right words on your listings to make sure that they get seen by shoppers. We're going to talk about product photography tips, shipping, pricing, shop setup, legal and tax basics, and so much more. You're also going to get access to my private student Facebook group, which I am in every single day answering questions, and we support and celebrate each other all the time. So, bottom line, if you want to make this Etsy thing work for you, I have over 20 hours of training waiting for you so you can master the Etsy marketplace or fill in any gaps of knowledge that you need. Or if you are strapped for time, which is 100% where I'm at right now, and you just need the bottom line, I've provided a fast track roadmap so you can get through the most critical lessons in under 5 hours. If you are ready, let's do this together. I'm going to hold your hand. You can visit the link in the show notes to learn more, and I will see you on the inside. So let's get into the details of each category. I think it's super interesting to see what are they specifically saying is allowed and not allowed, and they've gotten much better about being direct about it. We don't have to kind of guess and speculate what they mean. They're being more clear. There are, for each of the categories, I'm going to have a link so that if you want to read this in more detail later, like if you're driving and can't take notes and things like that, I want you to just visit the show notes and you'll be able to just grab the section rather than having to wade through. This is what they don't do well. I want Etsy to have a better indexing system of how we can find information, or a better search. So I have each one linked for you directly to that piece so you don't have to wade through it all. Number 1, made by a seller. So these are physical items made by a seller by hand or using personal or computerized tools. I think this is interesting that the made by is sort of also incorporating some digital products as well, whereas before that was totally separate. It's now considered made by the seller. So items made by a seller include only 1, handcrafted items, crafted entirely by hand using handheld or hand-guided tools like a sewing machine, table saw, from raw or basic craft materials. So their example they're giving is a wooden chair built by hand with a power saw and a sander, or a ceramic pottery thrown on a wheel. This can be labeled as a made by seller. It's also going to include hand-altered items. So you could buy something a commercially available base item that the seller then alters using specialized handcrafted skills. So you're taking something and you're making it something different with your tools. For example, hand embroidering flowers onto a tote bag, or reupholstering a piece of furniture with new fabric. So you've bought the raw product. It's not totally from scratch, but you're doing something to modify it that makes it a new thing, or a more personalized, custom, specialized item. The next one is hand-assembled items. So you can get commercially available supplies or components that the seller then attaches together or combines by hand to create a unique end product. So for example, using jewelry making tools to attach charms to a necklace chain. You're taking, 2 things already existing and putting them together. Sewing patches onto a denim jacket. So you've got the existing denim jacket and you are making it different by sewing patches onto it. The next one would be items produced using computerized tools. This is including physical items that a seller produced in their personal shop or home using computerized tools such as a laser printer, 3D printer, CNC, or Cricut machine. These items may be produced based on the seller's original design or using a templated design or pattern, and are often personalized or customized to a buyer's specification. So for example, clothing embroidered by a seller using a computerized embroidery machine. So not necessarily by hand, but using a machine. Tumblers decorated with vinyl stickers printed by a Cricut machine. Wedding invitations designed by a seller using software and printed onto stationery using a laser printer. So that is what is all allowed in the made by the seller section. And here's what does not qualify. So they also include examples of what you can't do. So you can't sell an item assembled by you, by the seller, per a manufacturer's instructions, like a flat pack furniture or a Lego set. So just because you can do something where you are assembling, it has to create something new. You can't just be the assembler and then sell it. Also, they say it is not allowed to add simple stick-on adornments, such as commercially available stickers, stamps, or rhinestones to a commercially available base item. It sounds like it's okay if you're using your Cricut and creating new ones, but just kind of grabbing those things, buying them commercially, and then sticking them on something that's not handmade enough. They also have gotten much clearer on their requirements in the listing photos, and I think that's wonderful. So they're saying that for the listing for items made by a seller must use the original photo or video content, meaning like you create that photo or video content of the final product. They're wanting to make sure that what is being displayed in the feed in the listing photo is showing exactly what they're going to get. So it says like when you're listing a personalized or custom item, this is really important. And they say it over and over again. So I want to make sure that I tell you to come back to me if you're, because I know this is all very detailed. If you're selling something custom, like a monogrammed or engraved accessory, the first image from going forward has to show a finished or customized product. So it used to be our placeholder or our photo there would kind of show the product and say like your text here or your name here. That is not allowed anymore. You have to show an actual example. I think that's interesting. I don't understand why they decided that, because I feel like this could cause some confusion for some buyers. Most of us understand what we're doing, right, when we're shopping on Etsy, but I think like the phrasing like your text here was really helpful, but you need to know as an Etsy seller that we cannot do that anymore. That could be your second photo, but the first one has to be a finished product, putting in a pretend name or example text. And again, that part isn't my favorite. However, I do like that they're at least getting more specific about what they're deactivating, because it's been like just mass deactivations happening. So that is our made by seller section. Again, even more details are linked down there, but that's kind of what you can and can't do. We're going to move on to the second one, which is the designed by a seller category. And so this is sellers' original designs that are produced or printed by a third party or offered as a digital download. That's interesting how they're categorizing all these things now. But again, I do think they've clarified it. So items designed by a seller include only, the first one is digital downloads of seller's original designs, original content created by the seller sold as a digital download. So an example is a digital file of your unique graphic design that you created, an audio piece, a text document, or a scanned copy of physical artwork. That's the first thing that qualifies. The second one is a seller's original design produced by a production partner. So original designs created by a seller and produced with the assistance of a production partner. This is making me think print on demand. So sellers must disclose that an item is made by a production partner and provide accurate information about where it will ship from. So they're reiterating that again. Buyers really want to know where it's shipping from. And that's the biggest, I think, issue with buyers when it comes to a production partner is like, is this coming from overseas or will it be local and how long will it take to ship? So an example is a unique dress designed by a seller, but then reproduced at scale by a production partner. Another example is a coloring book designed and illustrated by a seller and printed and bound by a production partner. And the final one would be a graphic logo created by a seller and printed onto a phone case by a third-party printer. So that's a good idea to provide that as to small businesses. And then the third part of this category is seller prompted AI creations. This is so exciting. It's going to be so controversial, but there's no avoiding it right now. So this is creations that were generated using AI tools, such as image generators, like DALL-E, or we've talked a lot about Midjourney, based on a seller's original prompts. So the seller has to disclose within the listing description if an item is created with the use of AI. And they have a link to their AI stance in there. We're going to talk more about that here in a few minutes. But I love that they're being very specific that we can sell things that were created by AI so long as we are disclosing they were created by AI. So an example would be a fantasy scene based on a seller's original prompt or input, depending on what tool you're using, produced by an AI generator. So a custom portrait of buyer's pet generated by using AI tools. That is what, these are the items that are allowed within the design by a seller section. And then they're going to give us a few examples of what does not qualify and would not be okay. The first is selling a bundle, collection, scan, or PDF of someone else's work as a digital download. So it says, except in the case of qualifying vintage items, which would fall under the vintage category. The next thing that would not be okay is using a pre-existing design or choosing from a production partner's ready-made templates, except in the case of items personalized by a buyer. And then the final one is you cannot sell AI prompt bundles, but there is a caveat to that, which we'll cover when we talk more about AI here in just a little bit. I think the kind of bottom line of this particular section, the design by section, is they want to make sure it was actually designed by you. Even if it's bringing several components together, you need to be the design. Even if you're not actually making the end product that the customer receives, you do need to be the designer behind it. There needs to be some skill that you're bringing to the table in creating the product. So let's move into number 3, which is going to be the hand-picked by a seller section. And this is going to cover your vintage items, items from nature, and certain collections that a seller personally selected and curated for sale. So items handpicked will include, again, vintage items. On Etsy, this is a good thing for us to reiterate here. Vintage items they qualify if they are 20 years old or older. Anything newer than that we're just listing as vintage because it looks that way doesn't qualify. It does have to be 20 plus years older. The seller personally curated or collected. This also includes digital files of scanned vintage content like photographs, books, or patterns, as long as they comply with our intellectual property policy. Yeah, make sure you're careful about that, because just because they're old doesn't mean there's not still necessarily like copyright or trademark laws applying to those items. So definitely look at the intellectual property policy, make sure you're following the law on that one. They did say, they included this statement that Etsy may ask for additional photo documentation or information about vintage items in your shop, such as their source, age, designer, or materials. So I am wondering if they're getting some pushback from the shoppers, like this wasn't really vintage, and they are maybe doing a little more due diligence in some instances. So an example of a acceptable product would be a rockabilly dress from the 1950s, or a copy of the book The Little Prince from the 1940s. And those would be okay to sell as a vintage item. Items from nature would include one-of-a-kind natural items that the seller personally found or cultivated, as long as they are permitted by our policies for plants, herbs, seeds, and soil, and their policy for endangered or threatened wildlife products. So if you are doing items from nature, you're going to want to take a look at those policies. I think the plants, herbs, seeds, and soil, it's probably got I didn't actually look at that one, but they're making sure things aren't getting shipped across the world and cross-pollinated in ways they're not supposed to. And endangered or threatened items, they're not wanting you to be sourcing and taking things out of nature that are actually in danger. We're trying to protect them, so they should not be removed from their original space. But this is not legal advice. Make sure you go back and look at those if you're in that niche. But the item might have been mounted, potted, polished, or sliced for collection, display, or cultivation, so long as it was formed organically rather than man-made. Examples: a rock, a geode, a shell, a fossil, a plant or plant start, a dried flower. Etsy is randomly a great place to buy propagation pieces or actual plants. Kind of surprised me, but you can actually buy live plants if you want to work on your plant collection. So I thought that was really cool. And then the next one, which I'm so excited about, is gift baskets. I just remember years ago when I was early on Etsy, one of the things I really wanted to try selling was diaper cakes, because I was selling them locally. And I mean, I'm kind of glad it didn't work out, because I think they would have been a pain to ship. I know a lot more about shipping now, but now they're allowing gift baskets, and they didn't at all before. So now we can sell an assortment of different types of items that the seller personally selected and creatively packaged to create a new unique set. This is what I think they've changed. This was not allowed. It was specifically not allowed before. And they said nothing had really changed. They are just making it more clear. But I say wrong, because this was not okay. Gift baskets must have a clear theme that ties together a variety of different types of items that were individually selected by the seller. Generic concepts such as candy, clothes, or mystery box, which is a box with unknown contents, or containing a single type of item in bulk, do not qualify as gift basket themes. Sellers must list every item contained in their curated gift basket or box in the listing description. So I'm just gonna throw this in here. This was the part I was the most excited about. Other than I'm excited also about the AI and mockup clarification. But I think there's a lot of opportunity here, because so many people are looking for just a fast gift that they can get. And gift baskets and bags and things like that we all love them. And their makeup, they're such a thoughtful gift. I was just talking to my sister who's getting married next year, and for her bridesmaids, she gave us each a box, and she bought all the boxes on Etsy that had our names on it, but then she had to source all of these individual things for it, which, was just difficult and expensive. And she happens to have a great eye for that. I would do a terrible job probably putting something like that together. So I think that I just want you as my people to know that this is a huge opportunity to jump onto, since it's not super flooded on Etsy right now. This isn't something where there's just hundreds and thousands of competitors, because it wasn't allowed. I think the hardest part about this is going to be able to source the items for it where you can still make a reasonable profit. That is going to be tricky, because it's going to need to be high quality. It's going to need to be beautiful. It's going to need to be shipped in its beautiful state. And that is all. So if you can master those logistics, you could kill it. But I think it's going to mean having to have some inventory, because a lot of these items you would need to buy in bulk to make them affordable. It's going to be tricky, but for the right people, this is a slam dunk. Get on it now. Again, like my sister said, bridesmaids boxes, but think about baby shower gifts, bereavement gifts, loss of pet gifts, going to college gifts, first day of school gift, just all of these things. Travel, when I think about how I would totally go to Etsy and buy right now I go to Amazon and I source all these random things for my kids for road trips. So anyway, I'm done. I'm getting off my soapbox, but huge opportunity. Here are the examples they give. A new dog parent themed gift box. containing an assortment of dog treats, dog bags, leash, and dog-themed coffee mug. So putting it all together. Now, the following are items that do not qualify is in the hand-picked by a seller category. You cannot resell commercially available items that are newer than 20 years old, even if the item is designed to appear vintage. You cannot resell commercially available gift baskets or gift baskets with a single item type or from a single commercial brand, as opposed to a collection of different item types selected and creatively packaged. So you can't go buy gift baskets in bulk and resell them. You cannot create a gift basket that just has one thing in it, one type of thing in it. And you have to source from different brands. So you can't go get everything from, one company. You need to be, your contribution of creativity is the sourcing of these special items and putting them together to create a new thing. Get to it. Let me know how it goes. Come on the podcast if you kill it, because I want to hear your story. Hey, you guys, coming in hot with a pro tip. Are you ready? Do you use special fonts, graphics, SVGs, or other digital goods to create your products or run your Etsy business? You need Creative Fabrica. So, for years in my shop, I walked that fine line of either using stock fonts and graphics that were right there on Canva, and I had a ton of trouble differentiating myself because, let's be honest, everyone else was using them too. Or I had to go invest a ton of money, sometimes hundreds of dollars, to buy them direct from a designer so I could create something extra unique and stunning, right? And don't even get me started about the whole factor of making sure I had a commercial use license so that I could use it for business. It was a whole nother expense and hassle, to be honest with you. But I have since found a better way, and I'm letting you in on the secret, okay? Enter Creative Fabrica. You guys, getting a membership to Creative Fabrica has been a game changer for me, okay? I've literally saved thousands of dollars. I'm able to create faster because I no longer have to scour the internet for what I need. It's very convenient. Not to mention, I don't have to wait for my budget to allow for a new digital asset before I can create something new. I have this membership. I can just access it whenever I want. So what is it? Creative Fabrica is a website where you can access unlimited digital goods for just $9.99 a month, like $9.99. This my jaw drops because this is an insane deal because everything comes with a commercial license as well, which means you're allowed to use them legally for profit. And I have to chuckle because this is less than I used to pay for just one font before, y'all. Like $9.99 for access. Okay, they have over 6 million fonts, graphics, and other digital resources that you will have full access to at any time. It's essentially like to be honest, this is like the top Etsy seller's best kept secret that you are now privy to. Welcome to the family. Did I mention you belong here? You belong here. And on top of that, Creative Fabrica, so they discovered this podcast. They reached out to me and they were like, Lizzie, we want to offer your audience like a special little perk. I'm just like, well, we love that. Tell us what it is. So now you guys can get 1 month free. You can get a free trial for up to 10 downloads, and you can test drive it and see if it's a good fit for you. Like I literally pay my own membership. I love it. So if nothing else, like take a free trial, stock up on some fresh stuff for free. Thank you, Creative Fabrica. And if you love the service as much as I do, it's just $9.99 per month to keep it going. And you can also cancel at any time. No questions asked. I love that. I love it when they do that. So if you want to jump in on this sweet deal, just go to howtosellyourstuff.com/creative. Again, that's howtosellyourstuff.com/creative. And you can grab that free trial. I'm so excited, you guys, to share this with you because this is like one of those pieces to the puzzle that can just change everything. It can just up the whole game. So just like let me know how it goes, okay? Okay. What else do I want to say about that? It's they're saying the same thing over and over again about the listing image requirements, just that you need to not have the custom. Well, like I said before, what was that phrase? Like it can't say your custom quote here. You have to use a picture of the actual final product as your first picture. Next up, the final category is called sourced by a seller, and this is going to include items that enable buyer creativity. So our craft and party supplies, items that are personalized with a buyer's custom text or image. So my guess is like logo swag and things like that. So items sourced by a seller include only First one, craft supplies, tools or materials whose primary purpose is to create a new item by hand, and you are selling the supplies. Party supplies was another one. Items whose primary purpose is to decorate for a special event, to give it a unique or personal aesthetic. And the third one is buyer personalized items produced by a production partner. So, as I kind of alluded to, items created using a buyer's unique text or image produced by a production partner. Why that's not falling under print on demand? Oh, I mean, it does say a t-shirt, hat, or neon sign that can be personalized with a buyer's name or special phrase. So I guess it's falling under this category because really the shopper buyer is providing the content and art for the final image rather than your print on demand shop where you created the design. So these are the ones this is what does not qualify as sourced by seller. This is good. We got to cover this. Generic resold items that have everyday uses like plain furniture, stage lights, or speakers do not qualify as party supplies. Okay, well, that makes sense. Also, resold blank items that are ready to use without craft intervention. So you cannot sell blank t-shirts, hats, or tumblers under like the craft supply, which again, now they're calling it sourced by a seller. That's interesting. I mean, I've seen lots of those for sale and I didn't appreciate that that wasn't allowed before. So those are our 4 categories. If you want to dive more into them, I will link them, but hopefully this overview has helped clarify and simplify what they came out with. And if you're feeling like, I don't have time to go read through all that and understand it, voila, that is your overview. And if you stuck around this long hearing all of that dry content, I appreciate you. I know that's it's really interesting for me because this is what I eat, sleep, and breathe, but I hope it at least brought some clarification. So let's go ahead and spend a few minutes now on the listing image requirements they came out with, which helped us get crystal clear about the use of mockups. So here are the listing image requirements. I'm going to kind of give you a snapshot of it with some asides about how I think we interpret this. And the first part, it's saying when you're creating your listings, you must use your own photos, either photos you took yourself or had someone take for you. These photos should showcase the actual finished product that you made, designed, handpicked, or sourced. So I will explain this more here in a second. It's going to go into the mockups, but the point is they don't want you just taking Target or Walmart's or J. Crew's image of something. You can't use someone else's end photo to sell your item. It can't come from someone else's photo gallery. This does not include mockups, which we'll talk about in a second. What I will add here though, let's say you're doing a handmade product that you make. So when I made my signs, I created my own mockups and that was perfectly acceptable even at the time. So I would create the end sign, but I would let it be blank rather than having the text on it. And I would then take a picture of it blank so I could use it as a mockup. And that is totally fine. That's your own original photography that you're then using, digital tools to help enhance. So and we're going to get clearer here with print on demand in a minute, but just know that it's always okay to take your own mockups. That's never, ever, now we can use them all, but that's never an issue. What Etsy really doesn't want happening is for you to be using someone else's end photography. It needs to be a picture of the actual item you're selling. And it needs to be one that you, especially with print on demand, you put the design on the blank mockup rather than using someone else's image. They're reiterating again. And so I will say it again because they really I have skipped it. I will tell you, they've said this 10 other times and I've skipped it for you. For personalized or customized items like custom drawings, monogrammed accessories, or t-shirts featuring a buyer's custom text, your first image must feature a finished customized item similar to what the buyer will receive. This helps the buyer visualize what their custom-made item will look like when completed. It is prohibited to use a photo of the blank product or a mock-up with a placeholder text. You can't use it where it says your text here on the mock-up. Now, when you're working with a production partner, the requirements for listing photos vary depending on the item. If you design a unique item, such as a piece of furniture, clothing, or book, and a production partner manufactures it for you, so this wouldn't be print on demand. This would just be if you use a third party to build or make whatever it is that you designed, because that is acceptable so long as you're the designer, then you need to use a real photo of the physical end product that you've taken. If you create an original design, such as artwork or a pattern that a production partner then prints onto a base item like a t-shirt or a mug, you may use a stock photo mockup to illustrate the end product that buyers will receive. So there we go. There you go. Buyer personalized items must follow the guidelines in the personalized and customized section above, meaning you can't use your custom quote here. I'm so glad they did this. Please, I'll have it linked if you want to take a look at it, but I feel like the clarification is extremely helpful. And now we know that and they just came out and said it, mockups are okay. Because for a while there, I don't even know if I addressed this a few minutes ago because my brain is going a million miles a minute. But last year there was so much drama about mockups, and the way that the listing image requirements were written were confusing, and Etsy just would not give us any clarification about it. And for a while there, we were thinking, you can't use mockups at all. You've got to buy samples of everything you sell and take pictures. And then some people were saying you can only use Printify's mockups. And then some people were saying, well, no, you just have to make sure you're using a picture of the actual item you're selling. You can't use a generic t-shirt if it's not representative of what you're selling, meaning a generic Walmart t-shirt when what you're selling is Comfort Colors because it doesn't represent it properly, or using a Comfort Colors mockup when what you're selling is a generic t-shirt. Etsy wants the picture to represent what it is that they're buying, and that's in your best interest as the seller as well, so you don't get complaints. And then some people were saying, well, that means you can't use any AI mockups. They are not being specific. They've made this much more simple. You may use a stock photo mockup to illustrate the end product buyers will receive. We never really did get clarification on what the issue was before, because it did seem like shops were getting suspended or getting listings taken down when they were using mockups. And the final kind of speculation from the people that I listen to that I actually think know what they're talking about in the Etsy community was what's happening is some of the really, really popular mockups are also being purchased by other bigger companies. And so we're seeing them, they're showing up on big sites. We're seeing them on Temu. We're seeing them on, oh my gosh, what's the other one? I can't think of it, but how there are a bunch of sites where you can buy a lot of fast fashion. And because of Etsy's algorithm and AI, what's the word I want to use? Programming in their algorithm to try to find things. They're using image data. So they're looking for images that are other places on the internet, and it's giving it a negative ranking in our algorithm. So when you use a mockup that's really, really, really frequently used, it's a double-edged sword, because on one hand, it's used a lot because it converts. When the buyer sees it, they have an emotional connection to the mockup image and the design you've put on it, and it makes it sell better. But on the other hand, it's all over the internet. And so Etsy seems to frown upon when they think because then they think you've stolen someone else's picture. So they've come out and said we can use mockups. They haven't said anything explicitly about what they're shutting down. Here's my opinion. If you can create your own mockups, awesome, but that's not practical for print on demand. I would use ones that look really good, but that aren't everywhere. So even though those are some of my favorites, if I'm seeing them all over some of those other websites on the internet, and you know what you can do? You can go to Google and you can do a reverse search. Their little tool on the search bar where you can search by image, and you can take a picture of the mockup that you want to use. Even before you buy it, you could take a screenshot, take a picture of it. See, when you do a search for that using Google's little AI image tool, it will then go and show you all the different websites that it's on. And if it's on a ton of different websites, don't use that mockup. You only want to see it show up in the search results a couple of times. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then you probably want to go back up, and you may want to be in my super, super ultra beginner class, and I will show you how to do these kinds of things if you're not sure what I mean. You don't have to be in the dark about what I mean. I can show you some of these little tech tools, little special things that can help you, understand and catch up on that. So do a reverse image search and see what comes up. So I prefer now to use mockups that look really good, but that aren't as popular, that aren't all over the internet. And that can mean sometimes that AI mockups work really well. You just want to make sure that the type of t-shirt or whatever it is pictured looks exactly like what they're going to get, so you don't have an unhappy buyer. Golly, I am wordy today. Thank you for sticking with me. And finally, we're going to wrap up on Etsy's stance on AI, which you've probably already got a feel for from some of the things that they have said above. Here is their statement that I had to copy and paste. After carefully considering the complex issues surrounding AI-generated content, we have decided to continue to allow sellers to use their original prompts in combination with AI tools to create the artwork they sell on Etsy. Sellers must disclose within their listing description if an item is created with the use of AI. We believe this decision aligns with our values of supporting artists through the evolution of art. However, we also understand there are important ongoing conversations regarding the training of AI models, including ethical questions about the use of copyrighted works and concerns about mitigating bias and negative environmental impacts. As such, we will be closely monitoring developments in this rapidly evolving area, listening to feedback from our community, and periodically reevaluating our policies. We are committed to striking the right balance between enabling our sellers to leverage new creative tools and technologies while ensuring that Etsy remains a marketplace known for its original items from real people. Maintaining the trust of both our sellers and buyers will always be our top priority. So, what does that mean? It means that right now it's okay to use art so long as you're disclosing it in your listing description. In a few weeks, I'm interviewing attorney Paige Hulse again. Also, there is a link in the show notes if you want to submit a question for her. We'll get through as many as we can, but I'm definitely going to be asking her what is happening in the world of AI art as it pertains to the legal, what's the legal battle happening right now? Because I know a lot of that's getting duked out, but I think we need to just be, as always with business, we need to be prepared that this could change. Etsy could change this stance, but they've at least come out and clearly said for now that it is okay to use AI. The other thing they did say before that I promised I would touch on this. They stated that you cannot sell prompt bundles. If you're not familiar, a prompt is, some of us who've just been playing with AI a lot have really honed how we tell it what to do. And the language that we use, or the little kind of paragraph of text that we use that we've honed from trial and error, is called a prompt. And it's what you copy and paste into the AI tool to get it to spit out something specific that you want. It's great to buy these because it's a huge time saver, so you don't have to fiddle around with it. So Etsy's saying you can't sell the prompt bundles unless you also include the final art it created. So there's kind of a workaround. Obviously, not obviously for everybody, but when you use a prompt, I could use the same prompt 10 times in Midjourney, for example, and I would get 10 different things. They'd be similar, but they would be different enough to be their own individual piece. So the buying of prompts is great, and to sell them is just that's a great way to create income. Etsy's just requiring that you include an example of the final art that it created because they want some product to be attached to it. So I think most people shopping for prompts aren't really looking for that. I think it's interesting that they're requiring that, but I'm sure there's some fine print there in the legalese that I don't understand of why they're doing it. So you can sell them so long as you include the final art that it created. The very last thing I'm going to mention to you is that coming up in September is Etsy Up, which is their free virtual conference that they do every year. It's going to be September 10th. And you can RSVP now. So you can put it on your calendar for September 10th, RSVP. It's a free event. And if you RSVP, you'll at least get kind of reminders and warnings, and then probably even a copy of the recording once it's over if you can't attend live. But I think, if you're an Etsy seller, this is an important thing to participate in so that you can see what's going on in the community and just be in touch with the heartbeat of what the company and the sellers and everyone is saying. It's a good thing to be a part of. So, oh my gosh, as I throw my mouse across the room, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I know this was a drier episode, but so important to clarify and to give you a snapshot if you don't want to be going in and doing all this research yourself. Isn't it also just more interesting when we can kind of collaborate and talk it through? I personally think so. So thank you so much. I hope you are doing awesome. I hope you are thriving. I hope that you will for sure take a look at those little really, really, really short 2-minute surveys. One for if you're interested in getting a weekly email with here is what's trending, or being able to download a report that tells you what to sell. I've had so many coaching calls lately with people who are like, can you just tell me what to sell? And I was like, well, kind of, yeah, we can go look, let me show you how to figure that out. I want to provide that for you guys en masse if that's appealing to you. And if you're a super, super, super beginner and you just want to be able to ask the questions and understand the tech things that you're missing. I want you to have that in a really comfortable environment where you don't feel embarrassed and everyone or no one around you is ahead of you. So let me know if either of those things interest you. Can't wait. And until next time, I'll talk to you next week. Go make something awesome. I love you guys. Take care. And that's a wrap on this episode of How to Sell Your Stuff on Etsy. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're looking for more resources, head on over to howtosellyourstuff.com, where you'll find podcast show notes, all the links from today's episode, the blog, courses, coaching, and more. If this episode was helpful to you, awesome. The greatest compliment I can receive from you is a rate, review, and subscribe on this podcast. Not only will it allow us to connect again on a future episode, it lets me know I'm providing you with value and helps other people find this content more easily. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your support. Have a great day and see you next time.